The fluorescent lights of St. Vincent's Elite Trauma Center hummed with that particular frequency that gets into your bones after a 12-hour shift. Cold, clinical, unforgiving. In the break room, 8 residents clustered around Dr. Preston Whitmore like disciples at the feet of a prophet. He was young, 32, with the kind of sharp features that looked good in hospital promotional materials. His white coat was pristine, creased in all the right places. The son of Senator Whitmore wore his pedigree like armor. $500, Preston said, loud enough to carry. Cash, right now. He pulled out his wallet, extracted 5 crisp hundreds, and slapped them on the table. That's my bet. The cleaning lady and the ugly scrubs won't last one real trauma. First time blood hits the floor and she has to do more than restock supplies, she'll faint. Or worse, she'll freeze and get someone killed. Laughter rippled through the group. Not kind laughter, the cruel kind, the kind that turns the stomach of anyone who's ever been on the receiving end. Preston, that's cold, one of the residents said, but he was grinning. Cold? It's realistic. You see the way she moves? Like she's got arthritis. And those hands, Preston held up his own steady surgeon's hands, turning them in the light. They shake. Constantly. Nerve damage, probably. Old age, definitely. She's a liability. I give her 1 week before Henderson fires her, or she quits out of embarrassment. In the hallway, just outside the break room door, Catherine Brennan heard every word. She was on her knees, mopping a streak of mud someone had tracked in from the ambulance bay. Her gray hair was pulled back in a bun that was more practical than fashionable. Her scrubs were 2 sizes too big, hospital-issue green that had been washed so many times they'd faded to a sickly sage. She was 52 years old, and she looked every day of it. Kate didn't stop mopping. She moved the mop in slow, deliberate circles. The rhythmic swish of wet fabric on linoleum was almost meditative. She'd heard worse. In another life, in another world, she'd heard things that would make Preston Whitmore curl up in a ball and weep. The sound hit her then, unexpected, uninvited, the thump, thump, thump of rotor blades. For just a fraction of a second, the hospital corridor disappeared. The fluorescent lights became desert sun, white-hot and merciless. The smell of industrial cleaner became cordite and burning oil. Sand in her mouth, blood on her hands, and screaming, always screaming. "Medic! Medic down! We need Ghost!" Kate's hand tightened on the mop handle. She breathed. 1 breath, 2. The way the therapist had taught her, the way she'd taught herself in the long years after. The hospital corridor returned. The desert faded. She went back to mopping. Behind her, the break room door swung open. Preston walked out, noticed her for the first time, and his lip curled. "Oh, Kate, there you are. When you're done with that, we're low on 4x4s in Trauma Bay 3? Stock those, would you?" He didn't wait for an answer. He never did. Kate straightened up slowly. Her right knee protested, the old injury from another war, another lifetime, but she maintained her composure. She watched Preston disappear down the corridor. "Yes, doctor," she said to no one. The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes until midnight. The night shift stretched ahead of her like a road with no end. She pushed the mop bucket toward the supply closet. The wheels squeaked. Everything in this hospital seemed to make noise except her. 3 hours earlier, the shift had started like all the others. Kate arrived at 10 p.m., clocked in at the nursing station, and received her assignments from the charge nurse. Not patient care, never patient care, restocking, inventory. The grunt work that kept a trauma center running, but that no one wanted to acknowledge. She didn't complain. In the supply room, she worked with a kind of methodical precision that would have impressed anyone who bothered to watch. Every IV bag was checked twice. Expiration dates, lot numbers, seal integrity. Her hands moved over the supplies with a familiarity that spoke of decades of practice. There was a faint tremor in her right hand, subtle but constant. To someone like Preston, it was a glaring neon sign of incompetence. Kate checked another bag of saline. Expiration date, March 2025. Good for 4 more months. She set it on the cart. The door opened behind her. Jesus Christ, Kate, are you still checking those? Dr. Preston Whitmore stood in the doorway, tablet in hand, looking at her with the kind of exasperation usually reserved for slow children and broken equipment. I'm almost done, doctor. You've been in here for 20 minutes. It's saline, salt water, not exactly rocket science. Kate turned to face him. She was shorter than him by 6 inches, stockier by 40 pounds. Everything about her seemed designed to take up as little space as possible. I'm being thorough, she said evenly. You're being slow. Preston stepped into the room. 2 residents followed him like shadows, an audience. He always needed an audience. I appreciate the effort, but we need efficiency here. This is an elite trauma center. We handle senators, generals, VIPs. We can't have someone who takes 20 minutes to stock a cart. The resident snickered. Kate looked at the saline bag in her hand, checked the date one more time, set it down. I'll work faster, she said. That would be great. Also, Preston pulled out his phone, made a show of checking something. I'm putting in a request with Henderson to get you some training, maybe an online course on modern hospital protocols, because I'm not sure they covered things like electronic charting back in, 1975? When you went to nursing school. More laughter from the residents. Kate had graduated nursing school in 1994, Army Baylor University program, top of her class, but she didn't correct him. That would be helpful. Thank you, doctor. Preston's smile faltered for just a second. He'd wanted a reaction, anger, embarrassment, something. But Kate's face remained neutral, calm, almost serene. It unnerved him. Right. Well, finish up here and get those 4x4s to Bay 3. We're expecting a possible MVA, and I want everything ready. He left. The residents followed. Kate waited until the door closed. Then she picked up the next bag of saline and checked the expiration date. She'd checked this one already, twice, but she checked it again anyway. Because in another life, a bag of saline with a hairline crack in the seal had nearly killed a 19-year-old specialist from Tucson. Kate had caught it, changed it out. The kid had lived. Thoroughness wasn't slowness. It was the difference between life and death. But Preston Whitmore had never worked in a field hospital. He'd never had to choose between speed and survival. He'd never had to hold someone's artery closed with his bare hands while mortars fell like rain. Kate finished the cart, rolled it out to Trauma Bay 3, stocked the supplies in the designated cabinets, every item in its place, every count verified. The nurse at the station, a young woman named Simmons with perfect makeup and manicured nails, watched her with barely concealed contempt. You know, Kate, if you moved a little faster, maybe they'd let you actually work with patients instead of just cleaning up after us. Kate didn't respond. She finished stocking. Rolled the empty cart back to supply. The clock read 11:51, 9 minutes to midnight. Midnight came and went. The hospital settled into the peculiar rhythm of night shift. Quieter than days, but never truly quiet. The emergency department was a living thing, breathing with the pulse of the city beyond its walls. At 12:47 a.m., the staff meeting started. Every Tuesday night, Preston held what he called tactical rounds. In reality, it was an opportunity for him to hold court, to remind everyone of the hierarchy, to demonstrate his brilliance. Kate wasn't required to attend. She wasn't important enough. But the meetings were held in the conference room adjacent to the supply closet she was reorganizing, and the door was open. All right, people, listen up. Preston stood at the head of the table. Behind him, a PowerPoint presentation glowed on the screen. Trauma protocol updates for Q1. I know, everyone's favorite topic. Polite laughter. But seriously, we've had some close calls lately. The Hopkins case last week, that GSW to the abdomen, we almost lost him because someone, not naming names, didn't have the rapid transfuser ready. He clicked to the next slide, a chart showing response times. We're the best trauma center on the East Coast, but best isn't good enough. We need to be perfect. That means every piece of equipment ready, every protocol memorized, every team member functioning at peak efficiency. Through the crack in the door, Kate could see the residents nodding, taking notes, hanging on every word. Which brings me to a concern. Preston's voice shifted, became more serious. We have some legacy staff, people who've been around a long time. And I get it. Loyalty is important. But this isn't a charity. This is life and death. He paused for effect. For example, we have a night nurse, I won't say her name, who came from some rural clinic in Nebraska. Nice lady, I'm sure, but she moves like she's got arthritis. Takes 20 minutes to stock a supply cart, and I've seen her hands, they shake. Kate's hand in the supply closet tightened around a box of gauze. Now, I'm not saying she's incompetent. I'm just saying, when a senator's son comes through those doors bleeding out, do we want someone whose primary experience is pulling splinters and giving flu shots? Or do we want people who can handle Tier 1 trauma? Silence in the conference room. Then a voice. Dr. Park, one of the older attendings. Preston, that seems a bit harsh. Harsh? It's realistic. Look, I did my residency at Hopkins. I trained under Whitaker himself. I know what elite medicine looks like. And it doesn't look like... He stopped himself, but the implication hung in the air. It doesn't look like Kate. Dr. Park said nothing more. Kate set down the box of gauze, stood very still in the supply closet. She closed her eyes, breathed. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she saw faces. Young faces, soldiers, Marines, Rangers, kids really, 19, 20, 22 years old, bleeding out in the sand, calling for their mothers, calling for God, calling for Ghost. She'd saved them, 127 of them, every single one that could be saved. She'd lost 14. She remembered every name. Kate opened her eyes. The supply closet came back into focus. The boxes of gauze, the shelves of medications, the sterile, organized, safe world of a hospital at night. She picked up the box and continued working. The alarm started at 2:37 a.m., not the usual overhead page, not the calm voice of the operator saying, "Trauma alert, ETA 5 minutes." This was different. The klaxon, two-tone, deafening, the sound that meant everything had just gone to hell. Code Black, mass casualty event. All surgical teams to bay. This is not a drill. The hospital transformed in seconds. Doors flew open. Staff poured into corridors. The casual efficiency of night shift became controlled chaos. Trauma bays lit up like operating theaters. Equipment carts appeared from nowhere. The blood bank was already on the line. Preston Whitmore came out of the residence lounge at a dead run, shrugging into his white coat. "Talk to me," he shouted at the charge nurse. "Incoming from Andrews Air Force Base. Special Operations Transport. Navy SEAL team extraction gone wrong. Multiple GSWs, blast injuries, possible chemical exposure. ETA 3 minutes. Preston's eyes went wide, then narrowed. This was it. This was what he had trained for. "All right, people. Diamond Protocol. Bay 1 through 4, prep for immediate surgery. I want blood. Lots of it. I want the rapid transfuser ready. I want..." He saw Kate. She'd emerged from the supply closet when the alarm sounded. Old instinct. When the alarm sounds, you run toward it, not away. But she wasn't running. She was standing near the scrub sinks, her back to the wall, watching. "Kate!" Preston's voice cut through the chaos. "Kate, what are you doing?" "I'm trauma-certified, doctor. I can help." For a moment, something like genuine anger flashed across Preston's face. "No, absolutely not. This is a SEAL team, Kate. Navy Special Operations. High-velocity rounds, shrapnel, possible blast injuries. This isn't a flu shot clinic. This isn't Nebraska. I've handled trauma before. I don't care what you've handled. I need nurses who can move fast, think fast, and not freeze when things go bad. Go to the waiting room, manage the families, do something you're actually qualified for." He didn't wait for a response. He spun and ran toward the ambulance bay. The residents followed. The other nurses followed. Kate stood alone near the scrub sink. She looked down at her hands, made fists, unclenched them, made fists again. Then she stepped back, Out of the way, invisible. The double doors to the ambulance bay exploded open. The sound was like a bomb going off, metal on metal, shouting, radio static. The metallic smell of fresh blood hit the air like a physical force. Paramedics poured through pushing gurneys, military medics in combat fatigues, MPS with rifles, faces grim. This wasn't a normal trauma. This was war coming home. Male, 30s, multiple GSWs to the chest and abdomen. Male, 20s, blast amputation, left leg tourniquet placed. We need a surgical team on this one now. And then, in the center of the chaos, surrounded by 4 MPS and 2 flight medics, a gurney with a mountain of a man. Even pale from blood loss, even with his tactical vest cut away and his torso covered in gauze and blood, Commander Thorne Merrick looked like he'd been carved from granite. His eyes were rolling back. His chest wasn't moving right. The medic was bagging him, but the oxygen saturation on the monitor was dropping. "Make a hole," the lead medic screamed. "HVT, high-value target, Commander Thorne Merrick, SEAL Team 3. Sniper round to the upper thoracic cavity, shrapnel to the neck. BP 70/40 and dropping. We're losing him." Preston was on him instantly. "Get him to Bay 1. I want a thoracotomy tray open now. Type and cross-match for 6 units. The team swarmed. Residents, nurses, respiratory, everyone moving with practiced precision. Kate watched from 30 feet away. She could see everything. The way Thorne's chest was moving, or rather, not moving correctly. The way the trachea in his neck was pushed slightly to the left. The distension of the jugular veins. No. She took a half step forward. Preston was focused on the neck wound, trying to get control of the bleeding there. The team was trying to get him intubated, but he was fighting, thrashing. Even half dead, his survival instinct was violent. "Hold him down," Preston shouted. "We need to secure this airway. He's fighting the tube. Push 100 of sucks. Get him paralyzed." Kate took another step forward. She could see the monitor. Oxygen saturation, 82%, 80%, 78. "Doctor," she said quietly. No one heard her. The respiratory therapist was trying to force the tube. Thorne's massive hand shot up and grabbed the man's wrist, grip like a vice. "Jesus Christ, restrain him!" Kate could see it now, clear as day. The right side of Thorne's chest wasn't expanding. At all. Breath sounds would be absent on that side. The trachea was deviated. Tension pneumothorax. Air trapped in the chest cavity, building pressure, collapsing the lung, crushing the heart. If they intubated him now, the positive pressure would kill him in 30 seconds. "Dr. Whitmore," Kate's voice was louder now, steady. Preston ignored her. He was clamping the neck wound, shouting orders. "Doctor, he has a tension pneumothorax." Still nothing. Kate stepped forward, out of the shadows, into the light. "Dr. Whitmore, tension pneumothorax. Look at the tracheal deviation." Preston's head whipped around. His eyes were wide, furious. "Who the hell do you think you are? Security? Get her out of here." "Look at his neck. Not the wound, the structure. The trachea's shifted left. His right chest isn't moving. You're about to intubate a collapsed lung and kill him." Dr. Park, the older attending, looked, really looked. "Preston," he said quietly. "She might be right. No breath sounds on the right. Distended neck veins. It's swelling from the shrapnel," Preston snapped. His pride was on the line now. "We secure the airway first. That's protocol." Kate didn't think. 20 years of training, 7 years of combat, 127 saves. She moved. Not like an arthritic 52-year-old woman, like a soldier. She crossed the distance to the trauma bay in 4 strides. Her hand shot out to the instrument tray, grabbed a 14-gauge angiocath needle, the biggest one there. "Stop her!" Preston lunged. Kate dropped her shoulder, a tactical block, rigid, efficient. The kind of move you learn when you're working in a combat zone and someone tries to interfere with patient care. Preston stumbled backward into a tray of instruments. Metal clattered across the floor. Kate was already at the bedside. Her left hand went to Thorne's chest, found the second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. The anatomy was burned into her brain. She'd done this procedure 43 times. 43 times in the back of helicopters, in the sand, under fire. She drove the needle in. The sound was immediate, audible, unmistakable. Hiss! Air rushed out with violent force. The trapped pressure releasing, the lung re-expanding, the heart no longer crushed. The monitor changed, the frantic beeping slowed. Oxygen saturation ticked up. 80, 85, 90. Thorne Merrick gasped, a massive ragged intake of air. His eyes snapped open. He was breathing. The trauma bay went silent, frozen. Everyone staring at Kate. She kept her hand on the needle, stabilizing it. Her face was calm, professional, like she'd done this 1,000 times, because she had. "Breathe, Commander," she said quietly. "I've got you. You're at St. Vincent's. You're safe." Thorne's vision was swimming, drugs, pain, but he focused on the woman holding the needle in his chest. He blinked, squinted. Recognition flashed across his face. "Ghost!" The word came out as a rasp. Barely audible, Kate's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "I'm here, Thorne. I'm here." Thorne's hand, the one that had been gripping Dr. Park's wrist, released, shaking. Moving with enormous effort, he brought it up, slowly, to his brow. A salute, not casual, not quick, a full, formal military salute, the kind you give to someone you'd die for, someone who'd already saved your life once. Kate didn't salute back. She wasn't in uniform. She was a nurse, a civilian, but she nodded, sharp, acknowledging. "At ease, Commander. Let us work." Thorne's hand dropped. His eyes closed, the anesthesia finally taking him under, but the room remained frozen. Dr. Preston Whitmore stood there, medical instruments scattered at his feet, staring at Kate like he'd never seen her before. "What?" His voice cracked. "What the hell just happened?" Kate looked at him, her hand still on the needle. Steady. "He's stable," she said flatly. "Do your job, doctor. Fix the neck. I'll prep the chest tube." She paused. "And if you shout at me again while a patient is dying, I'll break your fingers." It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact, delivered in a voice cold enough to freeze blood. Preston opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. 2 hours later, Commander Thorne Merrick was stable. The surgeries were done, the blood transfusions complete. He'd live. Kate sat in the hospital administrator's office. It was 3:45 in the morning. She was still in her blood-stained scrubs. There was a smear of Thorne's blood on her left sleeve, dried to a rust color. Across the mahogany desk sat Mr. Henderson, the hospital administrator. To his right, Mrs. Galloway, director of nursing. To his left, Dr. Preston Whitmore. Preston had changed into a clean white coat, navy blue button-down underneath. He looked composed, in control, the golden boy of St. Vincent's. Kate looked like exactly what she was, a tired, middle-aged woman who'd just been pulled into an emergency. "This is very serious, Ms. Brennan." Henderson's voice was measured. "Careful. Dr. Whitmore has filed a formal complaint. You physically assaulted an attending physician during a critical procedure." Kate said nothing. "Furthermore, you performed an invasive procedure, a needle thoracostomy, without authorization, without orders. That patient was under Dr. Whitmore's care." Preston leaned forward, his bruised ego visible in every line of his posture. "She elbowed me, Mr. Henderson, knocked me into a tray of instruments. I have a bruise on my chest." He touched his ribs gingerly. "And she's right that the patient survived. But that's not the point. The point is chain of command, scope of practice. If I hadn't been there to manage the follow-up, to control the neck wound, to secure the airway properly, Commander Merrick would be dead." He looked at Kate. "You got lucky, that's all. Blind luck, but luck isn't a medical strategy." Kate finally spoke. "The commander is stable," she said. Her voice was quiet, raspy. "Oxygen saturation 99%, lung reinflated, chest tube draining. He'll be in the ICU for observation, but he'll live. Due to my team's follow-up work, Preston said smoothly, we had to clean up your mess. You could have punctured his heart, lacerated the lung itself. The lawsuit would have bankrupted this hospital. Mrs. Galloway shifted uncomfortably. Kate, she said, trying for kindness, you have to understand protocol. You can't just attack patients, even if you think you're helping. Kate was silent. She thought about Fallujah. 2004. Lieutenant Thorne Merrick, at 28 years old, his femoral artery severed, bleeding out in the sand. 6 hours. She'd held pressure for 6 hours while mortars fell around them, sang Johnny Cash to keep him conscious. That was the day her hand got shredded by shrapnel, the day the nerve damage became permanent, the day she became Ghost. He was dying, Kate said quietly. Dr. Whitmore was treating a neck wound while the patient suffocated. Protocol doesn't matter when the patient is turning blue. And that's exactly the cowboy attitude we can't have. Henderson slid a piece of paper across the desk. Termination notice. Ms. Brennan, effective immediately, your employment at St. Vincent's is terminated for cause. We'll be reporting this incident to the State Nursing Board. You'll likely lose your license. Kate stared at the paper. She'd been fired before, from better places than this. She'd been fired upon by snipers in the Hindu Kush. A piece of paper from a bureaucrat didn't scare her. Security will escort you to your locker to collect your personal effects. Preston smirked. Small. Victorious. He'd won. He'd erased the witness to his incompetence. Kate stood slowly. She steadied herself against the desk. Then she looked directly at Preston. I have one question, Doctor. Make it quick. Preston checked his Rolex. When you go check on him, when you look Commander Merrick in the eye, Kate's voice dropped to something low and dangerous. Are you going to tell him that you were the one who saved him? Are you going to steal that valor? Preston's face flushed red. Get out. Kate walked to the door, that same careful gait they'd all mocked. But now, in the early morning silence, it didn't look weak. It looked like someone carrying the weight of the world. She paused at the door, didn't look back. He knew my name, she said quietly. The commander. When he woke up, he knew who I was. She left. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Preston sat there, triumph turning to ashes in his mouth. Good riddance, he muttered. Now I need to go deal with the family. Apparently Commander Merrick's file says he comes from a military dynasty. I need to make sure they know their son was in the best hands. He had no idea. No idea that the family arriving wasn't just concerned relatives. No idea that the United States government was about to descend on St. Vincent's Medical Center like the wrath of God. No idea that Catherine Brennan wasn't just a nurse from Nebraska. She was Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Ghost Brennan. Silver Star recipient, Distinguished Service Cross, 127 combat saves, a legend. And legends don't die in administrative offices, they rise. Kate walked through the hospital corridors one last time. It was 4:30 in the morning. The night shift was winding down. Doctors and nurses moved past her without seeing her. Invisible again. She stopped at her locker, opened it. Inside were the meager possessions of a woman trying to disappear, a cracked coffee mug that said "World's Okayest Nurse," a stethoscope she'd bought with her own money because the hospital-issued ones were garbage, a dying succulent plant in a plastic pot. She put them in a cardboard box. At the bottom of the locker, hidden under spare scrubs, was a photograph. She pulled it out, looked at it. A SEAL team, 12 men in desert fatigues, Iraq, Fallujah, 2004. In the center, a younger Kate, 32 years old, lean and hard and fierce. To her left, a young SEAL officer in dusty fatigues. Lieutenant Thorne Merrick, on the back, in faded ink, to Ghost. Fallujah 2004. You gave us second lives. Semper Fi. Kate tucked the photo in her pocket. She closed the locker, picked up the cardboard box, walked toward the exit. Rain was falling outside. She could hear it hammering on the roof of the parking garage. Cold, relentless. She pushed through the doors. The rain hit her like a wall. Within seconds, Her scrubs were soaked. The cardboard box grew heavy with water. Kate walked to the bus stop, set the box down on the bench, looked back at the hospital. Through the lit windows, she could see them. The doctors, the nurses, the elite trauma team, saving lives. She'd been one of them once, the best of them. Now she was just a wet, tired woman waiting for a bus in the rain. Kate sat down. The rain poured. The box dissolved slowly, sagging under the weight of water. She didn't cry. She'd used up all her tears years ago, in the desert, in the hospital where they told her David was gone, in the empty house she'd returned to. She just sat and waited. The bus would come soon. Route 42. It would take her away from here, away from the mockery, away from the failure, away. But somewhere in the distance, barely audible over the rain, a sound was building. Low at first, rhythmic, thump, thump, thump. Kate didn't hear it yet, but it was coming. Thunder, or something else entirely. The number 42 bus was a rattling cage of misery. Outside, the Virginia sky had cracked open like a broken promise, unleashing freezing rain that hammered the roof like small arms fire. Inside, the bus smelled of wet wool, diesel fumes, and the particular desperation of people who had nowhere else to go at 4:30 in the morning. Kate Brennan sat in the very last row, squeezed into the corner seat. The window beside her was streaked with rain, transforming the city lights into bleeding watercolors. The vibration of the engine traveled up through the floor, through the worn seat, into her bones. In her lap she clutched the cardboard box, what was left of it anyway. The rain had soaked through during her wait at the bus stop. The bottom was sagging, threatening to give way entirely. Inside, the cracked coffee mug rattled against the stethoscope. The succulent plant had tipped over, spilling dirt. The sum total of 3 weeks at St. Vincent's Medical Center. The sum total of trying to disappear. Kate stared out the window, watched the gray cityscape of Arlington blur past, strip malls, gas stations, fast food restaurants with their garish signs promising comfort at 3 a.m. The infrastructure of American life at its most basic, its most honest. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. A woman who looked every one of her 52 years, gray hair plastered to her skull, scrubs still damp, eyes hollow. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the photograph. Even in the dim light of the bus, she could make out the faces. 12 men in desert fatigues. Iraq. Fallujah. 2004. After 7 years of deployments, some missions blurred together, but not this one. This one stayed sharp. She turned the photo over, read the inscription she'd memorized 20 years ago. To Ghost Fallujah 2004, you gave us second lives. Semper Fi. Lieutenant Thorne Merrick's handwriting. Young, precise. The handwriting of a 28-year-old SEAL officer who just survived the impossible. Kate closed her eyes. The bus disappeared. Fallujah, 2004. November. The Chinook helicopter went down hard. Not a crash, not exactly, but a controlled descent that was only controlled in the sense that they didn't all die instantly. The RPG had clipped the tail rotor. The pilot, a kid from Tennessee with 300 hours of flight time, had wrestled the bird to the ground instead of letting it spin into the buildings. They'd hit the desert floor like God's hammer. The impact drove Kate's teeth together, cracked 2 molars, shattered her right kneecap against the metal bulkhead. But she was alive. 7 of the 8 SEALs in the cargo bay were alive. 1 wasn't. The smell hit her first. Cordite, hydraulic fluid, and blood. Always blood. Medic! The voice cut through the ringing in her ears. High, young, terrified. Kate moved, knee screaming. Doesn't matter. Pain is information. Information can be ignored. She crawled over twisted metal, over the body of the crew chief, over ammunition crates that had broken free and scattered like dice. Lieutenant Thorne Merrick was pinned under debris, 28 years old, a SEAL officer on his second combat deployment, 220 pounds of muscle. He had a girlfriend back in San Diego. Her name was Christina. Kate knew this because he talked about her constantly. She also knew that his femoral artery was severed. Blood was pumping out with each heartbeat. Dark red. Venous. But the volume? Kate's hands moved without thought. 20 months of combat medicine. 4 deployments. She'd done this before, too many times. She drove her fist into his groin, found the artery, clamped down with her fingers. The bleeding slowed. Didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not with a complete transection, but slowed enough. "Stay with me, Lieutenant." Her voice was steady, professional. The voice of someone who'd done this in her sleep. "Look at me. Eyes on me." His eyes were rolling. Shock setting in, the body's natural response to catastrophic injury. Shut down the periphery. Protect the core. "Christina's waiting," Kate said. "Your girl, Christina. She's got that dress, right? The red one? You told me about it. She's going to wear it when you get home." "Can't," Thorne's voice was a whisper. "Can't feel my leg." "That's the tourniquet. That's good. That's keeping you alive." Kate repositioned her hand. The blood was hot, slippery. Her fingers were cramping. "You're going to see her again. You're going to marry that girl. You're going to have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. The girl's going to have your eyes." She was making it up, all of it. Didn't matter. Humans need stories, need futures. Outside, the sound of gunfire. A K-47s. The distinctive crack, crack, crack of Kalashnikovs. The insurgents knew where they'd gone down. They were coming. The radio was dead. The pilot was dead. The extract team was somewhere. Kate held Thorne's artery closed and waited. 1 hour became 2. 2 became 4. The sun climbed higher. The temperature inside the wrecked Chinook went from cold to hot to unbearable. The smell of blood and fuel thickened. Kate's hand was a claw now, locked in position. She couldn't feel her fingers anymore. Couldn't tell if she was still holding pressure or if her hand had simply frozen in that position. Thorne drifted in and out of consciousness. During the 3rd hour, a mortar round hit 30 meters away. The concussion wave rolled through the helicopter. Shrapnel punched through the thin metal skin like angry wasps. Kate felt the impacts, 3 of them, right hand, right forearm, right shoulder, white-hot pain, the kind that makes you want to scream, makes you want to let go, makes you want to give up. She didn't let go. "Stay with me, Lieutenant." Her voice was hoarse now. She'd been talking for hours, telling stories. Singing songs when the stories ran out. She sang Johnny Cash, "Ring of Fire," over and over, because it was the only song she could remember all the words to. "I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher." Thorne's eyes fluttered open. "Terrible voice," he whispered. Kate laughed. It came out as a sob. "Yeah, well, you're stuck with it." "Am I going to die?" "No." Kate's voice was iron. "You're going to live. You're going to marry Christina. You're going to name your first kid after someone you respect, because officers don't quit, and neither do I." Another mortar. Closer this time. Kate held on. 6 hours. That's how long she held Lieutenant Thorne Merrick's femoral artery closed. 6 hours in a downed helicopter, in enemy territory, under sporadic fire. When the extraction team finally arrived, 2 Blackhawks, full of Rangers who'd fought through 3 blocks of insurgents to reach them, Kate couldn't let go. Her hand had locked. Nerve damage, shrapnel, trauma. They'd had to pry her fingers open, one by one. When they finally lifted Thorne onto the medevac bird, when they finally got an IV started and a proper clamp on the artery, when the flight medic gave her the thumbs up that meant he'd make it. That's when Kate passed out. She woke up 3 days later in Landstuhl. Germany, the big military hospital where all the serious wounded went. The doctors were very apologetic about her hand. The shrapnel had done too much damage to the median and ulnar nerves. They could remove most of the fragments, but 3 were embedded too deep. Removing them would cause more harm than leaving them in. She'd have tremors for the rest of her life. She'd also have a silver star. And Lieutenant Thorne Merrick would have a future. The bus lurched. Kate's eyes snapped open. The photograph was still in her hand. Thorne's young face smiled up at her from 20 years ago. A lieutenant who'd become a commander. Alive. Because of her. She tucked the photo back in her pocket. Outside, the rain continued to fall. The bus rattled on through the pre-dawn darkness. Kate's internal voice exhausted. I saved 127 soldiers. I lost my husband to this war. David, Captain David Brennan, 75th Ranger Regiment, KYA Helmand Province, 2019. I lost myself after that. Retired, tried to disappear, tried to be nobody, just another nurse, just another old woman. But tonight I saved him again, and they fired me for it. The bus driver's voice crackled over the ancient intercom. Next stop, Fort and Main. Transfer to the Blue Line. Kate shifted in her seat, prepared to stand, to get off, to walk to her empty apartment, to disappear completely. Then she heard it. A sound, about faint at first, so faint she thought she was imagining it. The bus engine was loud, the rain on the roof was loud. But underneath, something else. Kate tilted her head, listening. The teenager 3 rows up pulled out his earbuds, looked around. Yo, you guys hear that? Other passengers stirred. A middle-aged woman clutched her purse tighter. An old man in a faded cap, military by the bearing, looked toward the windows. The sound grew, low, deep, a thrumming that wasn't coming from any one direction. It was everywhere. In the air, in the ground. The bus driver frowned. What the hell? The vibration hit. Not a sound anymore. A physical sensation. Kate felt it in her chest, felt it through the floor of the bus, through the seat, into her spine, rhythmic, steady, growing. Thump, 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 thump. The teenager stood up, pressed his face to the window. Dude, what is that? The beating grew louder, impossibly loud. The kind of sound you don't just hear, you feel, in your bones, in your teeth. An elderly woman in the front started praying, soft, rapid. The bus driver's hands tightened on the wheel. That sounds like deafening roar. The bus swerved violently. Brakes shrieked. Tires locked up on wet asphalt. Passengers were thrown forward against the seats in front of them. The woman's purse flew open. Contents scattered. The teenager's phone hit the floor. Kate braced herself against the window. The cardboard box tumbled from her lap. The coffee mug shattered. The succulent plant rolled down the aisle. The bus came to a shuddering stop. Silence. Then chaos. What the hell? The driver shouted. Are you crazy? Kate looked up, looked through the rain-streaked windshield. The street ahead was blocked. 5 black SUVs. Massive. Government issue. They'd pulled sideways across all lanes, cutting off traffic. Their grills were lit with red and blue strobes, blindingly bright in the pre-dawn gloom. Doors opened. Men emerged. Not police, not FBI. Military police. MPS. 8 of them, maybe more. Hard to tell through the rain. They wore rain ponchos over tactical gear, drop-leg holsters, rifles slung across their chests. They moved with the terrifying precision of people who'd done this 1,000 times. Oh my God, someone whispered. It's a raid. I didn't do anything, the bus driver shouted. His hands shot up. I'm just driving the route. Don't shoot. The MPs ignored him. They fanned out. Surrounding the bus. Professional. Efficient. No wasted movement. Above, the sound intensified. Kate looked up through the window. 2 Black Hawk helicopters, hovering maybe 100 feet overhead. Their spotlight beams cut through the rain like pillars of white fire, focused on the bus. The rotor wash drove the rain sideways. Trees bent. Cars rocked on their suspension. Inside the bus, passengers were panicking now. Some were ducking, hands over heads. Others were pulling out phones, filming. The teenager with the phone pressed record. Holy shit, this is insane. Kate sat very still, hands in her lap, watching. She knew what this was. She just didn't know why. The MPs took position around the bus, 2 at the front, 2 at the rear, 4 along the sides. Their rifles weren't aimed at the bus. but they weren't exactly pointed away either. Ready. Then, through the rain, a sound. Tap, 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 a cane on metal steps. The front door of the bus hissed open. The driver hadn't opened it. The MPs had. Override switch. A man climbed aboard. He moved slowly. Not from age, though he was old. 64 at least. White hair cropped military short. Broad shoulders. The slow movement was deliberate, controlled. The movement of someone who'd earned the right to take his time. He wore a Class A military dress uniform. Dark blue. Immaculate. Even in the rain. An aide outside held an umbrella over him until he was inside. Then the aide stepped back. The man shook water from his cap, looked down the aisle of the bus. 4 silver stars gleamed on his shoulders. General. Not just any general. 4 stars, that was the top. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Secretary of Defense. The men who decided if America went to war. The bus went deathly silent. Even the panicking stopped. Everyone frozen. Phones still recording, but silent. The general walked down the aisle. His cane tapped the floor. Tap, 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 the rhythm precise, military. He walked past the driver, past the elderly woman still praying, past the teenager with the phone, past the old man with the military bearing who slowly, shakily, came to his feet and stood at attention. The general nodded to him. A small acknowledgement, one soldier to another. Then he continued to the back, to the last row, to Kate. She looked up at him. General Wade Sullivan. She recognized him now, older, gray, but the same man who'd been a captain when she'd been a lieutenant. The same man who'd pinned her silver star on her chest in 2005. The same man who'd attended David's funeral in 2019. "You're a hard woman to find, Ghost," Wade said quietly. His voice was warm, familiar. But underneath, there was something else. Command. Authority. The weight of 4 stars. Kate's throat tightened. Tears, unexpected, unwanted, welled up and spilled over. "Hello, Wade," she whispered. Wade's expression softened, just slightly. "You look like hell, Kate." "I feel like it." Her voice broke. "I messed up, Wade. I assaulted a civilian doctor. I broke protocol. I know." Wade pulled out a metal folding chair from the sidewall seat, sat down across from her, settling his cane against the window. "I also know you saved Commander Merrick's life. Again." Kate shook her head, tears streaming now, mixing with the rain on her face. "They fired me. They're going to take my license. I just wanted peace, Wade. I just wanted to disappear, to stop being Ghost, to be nobody." Wade reached out, put a hand on her shoulder, firm, grounding. "You don't get to disappear, Kate, not you." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folder, black, classified stamp on the cover. He opened it, and then, in a voice that carried to every corner of the bus, he began to read. "Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Marie Brennan, United States Army. Service number, well, we'll skip that for operational security." Passengers were staring, phones recording. The teenager had stopped filming his face. Now he was filming the general. Wade continued. "Deployed Iraq Operation Iraqi Freedom, 2003 to 2005. Deployed Afghanistan Operation Enduring Freedom, 2006 to 2010, and again 2012 to 2015. 7 years combat total." He turned a page. "Lead trauma surgeon, 75th Ranger Regiment. Call sign, Ghost." Someone on the bus gasped. "Silver Star for Actions Under Fire, Fallujah, Iraq, November 2004. Wade's voice was steady, professional, but there was pride in it. Citation reads, "For gallantry in action against an enemy of the United States. Lieutenant Brennan, under intense enemy fire, maintained manual pressure on a Lieutenant Merrick's severed femoral artery for 6 hours while pinned down in a downed aircraft. Despite sustaining multiple shrapnel wounds to her right hand and arm, she refused evacuation until the wounded soldier was stabilized. Her actions directly saved Lieutenant Merrick's life." The old man with the military bearing was crying now, silent, tears streaming down his weathered face. Wade turned another page. Distinguished Service Cross, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with Valor, Army Commendation Medal with Valor Device. He looked up, made sure everyone on the bus was listening. 127 documented combat saves over 7 years, 14 KIA, despite her efforts. She remembers every single name. Wade's voice dropped, became more personal. The tremor in her right hand isn't age. It's not incompetence. It's shrapnel. 3 fragments embedded in the median and ulnar nerves, sustained while she was saving Lieutenant Merrick's life in Fallujah. Inoperable. Permanent reminder that she held on when letting go would have been easier. Kate's hand was shaking now, not from nerves, from something deeper, recognition, validation. Wade closed the folder, looked directly at Kate. You retired in 2019 after your husband, Captain David Brennan, 75th Rangers, was KYA in Helmand Province. You attended his funeral, buried him at Arlington. Then you disappeared. He leaned forward. But you don't get to stay disappeared, Ghost. Your country needs you. Commander Merrick needs you. Kate looked up. Wade, I'm fired. I'm nobody. You're Lieutenant Colonel Brennan. You're Ghost. You're the reason Thorne Merrick is alive right now. Wade stood, extended his hand. And we're not done yet. Kate stared at his hand, then at his face. What do you mean? We have a situation. Wade's voice shifted. Official now. Corporal Dylan Ashford, 27 years old, son of Senator Ashford. Blast injury from the Kabul evacuation. Massive internal hemorrhage. Standard surgery will kill him. He needs REBOA. Kate's breath caught. Resuscitative endovascular balloon occlusion of the aorta. The procedure she'd pioneered in field conditions. The procedure only 9 surgeons in the country could do under pressure. She'd done it 14 times, in the back of helicopters, under mortar fire. He dies in 90 minutes without you, Wade said. You're the only one who can save him. Kate looked at her hands, at the scattered contents of her cardboard box, at the shattered pieces of her coffee mug. Then she looked at Wade. She reached out, took his hand. The grip was firm, familiar. The grip of soldiers who'd been through hell together. Wade pulled her to her feet. Let's go save a life, Wade said. He turned to face the passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just witnessed something extraordinary. This woman, this nurse you see before you, is an American hero. Remember her face, remember her name. The old man saluted, shaky, but crisp. The teenager was still filming. Tears on his face now, too. Wade led Kate down the aisle, toward the front of the bus, toward the doors. As they approached the exit, the MPS outside came to attention. Kate stepped out into the rain. The helicopter spotlights hit her, blinding white. She raised a hand to shield her eyes. The MPS stood in formation, 12 of them now, rifles at their sides, rain pouring off their helmets. The senior NCO barked the command, Present, arms! 12 hands snapped to 12 brows, 12 perfect salutes for her. Kate stood there, soaking wet, in stained scrubs, hair plastered to her skull, looking every bit the tired middle-aged woman she was, but she straightened her spine, pulled her shoulders back, ignored the pain in her knee, and she returned the salute, sharp, crisp, the way she'd learned 25 years ago, the way Ghost saluted. Wade gestured to the lead SUV. Your chariot awaits, Colonel. Kate climbed in. The leather seat was warm, dry. The door closed, shutting out the rain and the cold. Wade slid in beside her, tapped the driver's shoulder. Lights and sirens. I want them to hear the thunder coming. The engine roared. The convoy peeled away from the bus, tires screaming on wet pavement. The Blackhawks peeled off overhead. Following. Inside the SUV, Kate looked at her reflection in the window. The woman looking back wasn't the invisible janitor anymore. She was Ghost, and Ghost was going to war. The convoy arrived at St. Vincent's Medical Center like an invading army. 5 SUVs, 2 helicopters overhead, sirens blaring, lights flashing. The emergency bay designed for ambulances was suddenly flooded with federal vehicles. Doors flew open. MPS poured out, securing the perimeter with military precision. Staff inside the hospital ran to the windows. Doctors, nurses, security, all staring. Preston Whitmore was in the doctor's lounge, drinking coffee, riding the high of having fired the incompetent old nurse, preparing for his meeting with Commander Merrick's family. He heard the sirens, frowned, walked to the window, went pale. The lead SUV's door opened. General Wade Sullivan stepped out, 4 stars gleaming even in the rain. Then the passenger door opened. Kate Brennan emerged, but not the Kate Preston knew, not the stooped, limping janitor. She was wearing a borrowed field jacket, olive drab, faded from years of use, but the oak leaves on the collar were crisp. Lieutenant Colonel rank. She stood tall, moved with purpose. The limp was still there, but now it looked like what it was, a war wound. Kate walked toward the hospital entrance, Wade beside her, MPS flanking. Preston stumbled back from the window. What the hell? Kate pushed through the main entrance. Water dripped from her scrubs, her hair. She left a trail of rain on the polished floor. The lobby went silent. Everyone staring. Kate's voice cut through the silence. Clear, commanding. The voice of someone who'd given orders under fire. I need OR3 prepped immediately. REBOA kit. Type O negative, 12 units. Get me a fluoroscopy tech. And someone find me a vascular surgeon who can follow orders without arguing. Staff froze, confused. This was the woman who'd been fired 4 hours ago. Wade stepped forward, raised his voice. That was an order from Lieutenant Colonel Brennan. Move, now. The spell broke. Staff scattered, running, following orders. Preston appeared from the doctor's lounge, face white. You can't just, she's fired. Wade turned, looked at Preston. The 4 stars on his shoulders caught the light. Dr. Whitmore, is it? Preston swallowed. Yes, sir, I'm the chief resident. This is Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Brennan, Silver Star recipient, 127 combat saves, the leading expert on emergency vascular procedures in combat conditions. Wade's voice was ice. She's here to save a life. Either assist or get out of the way. Preston opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Kate. She met his gaze, held it. She didn't smile, didn't gloat. She simply looked at him the way a lion looks at a house cat. Then she walked past, toward the OR. Wade followed, turned back to Preston. Oh, and Dr. Whitmore, we'll be discussing your conduct in a formal review later. Right now, we have work to do. Preston stood there, in his expensive suit, his pristine white coat, watching them disappear down the corridor. Around him, staff whispered. Phones were already out. The bus video, the teenager had posted it, was going viral. #GhostMedic was trending. Preston's hands started shaking. OR3 was ready in 12 minutes. Kate stood at the scrub sink, scrubbing in. The ritual familiar, comforting. She'd done this 10,000 times. Beside her, a vascular surgeon, Dr. Park, the older attending who'd shown her kindness, scrubbed in silence. Colonel, he said finally, I served, Army medic, 2 tours Iraq. I didn't know. You know now, Kate said. That's enough. She turned off the water with her elbow, held her hands up, water dripping from her elbows. A surgical nurse approached with gloves. Kate slid her hands in. The right glove went on smoothly despite the faint tremor. They pushed into the OR. Corporal Dylan Ashford was on the table, already intubated. Monitors beeping. His vitals were bad. BP 60, over 30. Heart rate 140. He was bleeding faster than they could replace. Kate looked at the monitors, at the patient, at the blood pooling in the suction canister. 3-minute countdown once the balloon inflates, she said. Longer than that and his legs die. Everyone clear? Nods around the room. Then let's begin. Kate made the first incision. Femoral cut down. Access to the artery in Dylan's groin. Her hands moved with absolute precision. The tremor disappeared when it mattered. She found the artery, cannulated it, threaded the catheter. "Fluoroscopy," she said. The X-ray machine hummed. The screen showed the catheter snaking up through Dylan's iliac artery, into the aorta, up, into the thoracic cavity. "There," Kate said. "Inflate the balloon." The tech at the machine pressed the button. On the screen, the balloon expanded, blocking the aorta. All blood flow to the lower body stopped, redirected to the brain and heart. "Timer starts now," Kate said. 3 minutes. Find the bleeder." They opened the abdomen. Blood welled up. Too much. Kate's hands moved through it, packing, retracting, searching. 2 minutes 30. There, a liver laceration, grade 4, pumping blood with each heartbeat. Kate packed it, applied pressure, began suturing. The room was silent except for monitors. Beeping, hissing, the sound of controlled crisis. 2 minutes. Kate's hands flew. Suture, tie, cut, suture, tie, cut. Outside the OR, the gallery was packed. 50 people, staff, residents. Preston was there, in the back, watching. 1 minute 30. Kate tied off the last vessel, packed the liver, checked for bleeding. "Clear," Dr. Park said. "No active hemorrhage." "Deflate the balloon," Kate ordered. "We have 40 seconds," the tech started. "Deflate it now, before ischemia sets in." The tech complied. On the screen, the balloon collapsed. Blood flow returned to Dylan's legs. The monitors changed. BP rising. 80 over 50, 90 over 60, 100 over 65. Heart rate slowing. 120, 110, 100. Oxygen saturation climbing. 94%, 96%, 98%. Kate stepped back, stripped her gloves. "Get him to ICU. He'll wake up in 4 hours." The room erupted in applause. Kate didn't acknowledge it. She walked out of the OR, pushed through the doors into the scrub area. Wade was waiting. "Well done, Ghost." Kate leaned against the wall, the adrenaline draining, leaving her shaky, exhausted. "He'll live," she said. "Because of you." Kate looked at her hands. "Still got it," she whispered. To herself, to David, to the ghost she carried. "Still got it." Wade put a hand on her shoulder. "Never doubted it. Now come on. We have one more piece of business." Kate looked up. "What?" Wade's smile was cold, dangerous. "It's time to have a conversation with Dr. Whitmore and the hospital administration about respect, about competence, about what it really means to save a life." Kate straightened. The exhaustion fell away. "Lead the way, General." They walked back into the hospital, side by side, soldier and soldier. The reckoning was coming, and Preston Whitmore had no idea what he was about to face. The recovery ICU at St. Vincent's was quiet in the way hospitals are never truly quiet. Machines beeped their steady rhythms. Ventilators whooshed. Somewhere down the hall, a nurse's shoes squeaked on polished linoleum. But compared to the chaos of the trauma bay, it was peaceful. Corporal Dylan Ashford lay in bed 3, pale, heavily bandaged. Tubes and wires connected him to a symphony of monitors. But his chest rose and fell with steady, independent breaths. His heartbeat strong at 75 BPM. His oxygen saturation held at 98%. He was alive. Kate stood at the foot of his bed, still in scrubs, still damp from the rain. She'd been standing there for 5 minutes, just watching, monitoring. The old habit of a combat medic who'd learned that survival was measured in seconds and you never trusted the first hour. Behind her, the ICU door opened. She didn't turn. Didn't need to. She knew the sound of expensive shoes on hospital floors. "Ms. Brennan?" The voice was cultured, smooth, the voice of someone who'd spent decades in political office, learning how to sound genuine even when reading from a script. Kate turned. Senator Richard Ashford was 71 years old, silver hair, expensive suit wrinkled from the helicopter ride from D.C. His eyes were red. He'd been crying. Powerful men rarely cried in public, but there were exceptions. "Your son nearly dying" was one of them. "Senator," Kate said quietly, "they told me—" His voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. "They told me you saved Dylan's life, that no one else in the region could have performed that procedure, that without you, my son would have—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Kate looked back at Dylan. "He's strong. He'll recover fully. No permanent damage. He'll be back to active duty in 6 months if he wants." If he wants? The senator moved closer, stood beside Kate, looking at his son. "After what happened in Kabul, I don't know if he'll want to go back." "That's his choice to make," Kate said. "But he's a soldier. Soldiers go where they're needed." The senator turned to look at her, really look at her, taking in the gray hair, the worn scrubs, the faint tremor in her right hand. "General Sullivan told me about you, about Fallujah, about your husband." He paused. "I'm sorry for your loss." Kate nodded. Didn't trust herself to speak about David. Not yet. Not here. "What can I do for you?" the senator asked. "Anything. Name it. Money, position, honors, anything." Kate was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to face him fully. "Fund the VA trauma training program," she said. "The one that keeps getting cut every budget cycle. Train more medics. Train them right, so fewer families lose what I lost." Senator Ashford blinked. "That's all? You want research funding?" "I want soldiers to come home," Kate said simply. "I want the next Ghost to have better equipment, better training, better support. I want the military to stop treating combat medicine like an afterthought." The senator's expression shifted. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. "Consider it done," he said. "I'll have the Appropriations Committee draft the bill by Monday. Thank you." "No, Ms. Brennan, thank you." He extended his hand. Kate shook it. Firm, brief, the handshake of professionals. The senator left. Kate turned back to Dylan, adjusted his blanket slightly. A small gesture, maternal. She'd done it 10,000 times, for 10,000 wounded kids who'd needed someone to care. The ICU door opened again. This time, it was Wade. "Kate, it's time." She looked at him. Time for what? Wade's smile was cold, sharp, the smile of a general who'd just outmaneuvered an enemy. "Time for the hospital to understand exactly who you are and what they almost lost." The main lobby of St. Vincent's Medical Center could hold 200 people comfortably. At 7:15 a.m., it held nearly 300. Every staff member who wasn't actively treating a patient had been summoned. Mandatory assembly, direct order from hospital administration, no exceptions. They packed the space. Doctors in white coats, nurses in scrubs of every color, technicians, administrators, security, environmental services, every level of the hierarchy crammed together. Whispers rippled through the crowd, speculation, rumors. Everyone had seen the convoy, the helicopters, the viral video of the woman on the bus being saluted by 12 soldiers. Some recognized her. "That's Kate, the night nurse, the one Preston fired." Others didn't believe it. "That can't be her. That woman's a colonel, a war hero." At the front of the lobby, a podium had been set up. Microphone, speakers. Behind it, a large projection screen showed the hospital logo. Preston Whitmore stood near the back, arms crossed, face carefully neutral, but his hands were shaking. He'd seen the video. He'd watched Kate perform Ari Boa. He'd felt the ground shifting beneath him. But he was still Preston Whitmore, son of Senator Whitmore, Johns Hopkins graduate, chief resident of St. Vincent's Elite Trauma Center. He'd weather this. He always did. The lobby doors opened. General Wade Sullivan entered. 4 stars gleaming. Every person in the room who'd ever served military, and there were more than Preston realized, came to attention, straightened, showed respect. Wade walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone. "Good morning," he said. His voice carried effortlessly, command voice. "I'm General Wade Sullivan, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I'm here to discuss a matter of national importance." The room went deathly silent. Last night at approximately 2:47 a.m., Commander Thorne Merrick of SEAL Team 3 was brought to this hospital with life-threatening injuries, tension pneumothorax, multiple GSWs. He was minutes from death. Wade paused. Let that sink in. Your chief resident, Dr. Preston Whitmore, missed the diagnosis. Focused on a superficial neck wound while the patient suffocated. If not for the intervention of one of your nurses, Commander Merrick would be dead. Preston's face went white. Wade continued. That nurse was fired. Terminated for cause, for assault, for unauthorized medical procedure, for insubordination. He pressed a button. The screen behind him lit up. Security footage from Trauma Bay 1, time-stamped, crystal clear. The crowd watched as Kate tried to warn Preston, watched him dismiss her, watched her perform the needle decompression, watched Preston stumble backward, watched Commander Merrick salute Kate. The footage ended. That woman, Wade said, is Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Marie Brennan. Call sign, Ghost, and it's time you knew exactly who she is. He pulled out the folder, the same black folder from the bus. Opened it. Lieutenant Colonel Brennan served 7 years in combat, Iraq and Afghanistan. She was lead trauma surgeon for the 75th Ranger Regiment, one of the most elite combat medicine positions in the United States military. Wade pressed another button. The screen changed. Photos now. Kate in combat fatigues, younger, harder, covered in dust and blood, saving lives in the back of helicopters. The staff stared. Silver Star for Gallantry Under Fire, Fallujah, Iraq, November 2004. Wade read the citation. Every word. The 6 hours, the shrapnel, the singing, the refusal to evacuate. Some people in the crowd were crying now. Wade showed more photos, more citations. Distinguished Service Cross, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with Valor. 127 documented combat saves, Wade said. 14 KIA, despite her best efforts. She remembers every single name. He closed the folder. The tremor in her right hand, the tremor that some of you mocked, that some of you used as evidence of incompetence, is shrapnel, 3 fragments embedded in the median and ulnar nerves, sustained while she was saving Lieutenant Merrick's life in Fallujah. Permanent, inoperable. A reminder that she held on when letting go would have been easier. Wade's voice hardened. Lieutenant Colonel Brennan retired in 2019 after her husband, Captain David Brennan, was killed in action. She buried him at Arlington. Then she tried to disappear, to be nobody, to live a quiet life. He looked directly at Preston. But you wouldn't let her, would you, Dr. Whitmore? Preston tried to speak. No words came out. You mocked her, publicly, repeatedly. You bet $500 that the woman who saved a senator's son wouldn't last a week. You called her a janitor. Grandma, incompetent. You questioned her ability to read expiration dates. Wade's voice dropped, became deadly quiet. But the microphone carried it to every corner of the lobby. You humiliated a war hero, a woman who saved more lives before breakfast than you'll save in your entire career. The crowd turned to look at Preston. Hundreds of eyes, judging. Preston felt his career crumbling. I didn't know, he started. You didn't ask, Wade snapped. You saw an older woman moving slowly, hands shaking, and you assumed incompetence. You never considered that maybe, just maybe, she'd earned those scars. Wade pressed the button again. The security footage returned, different angle, showing Preston focused on the wrong wound while Thorne's oxygen saturation plummeted. Last night, Dr. Whitmore, your negligence almost killed a Navy SEAL commander. If not for Lieutenant Colonel Brennan's intervention, an intervention for which she was fired, Commander Merrick would be in the morgue. Wade let that statement hang in the air, heavy, damning. And then at 4:30 this morning, Lieutenant Colonel Brennan performed an emergency REBOA procedure on Corporal Dylan Ashford, son of Senator Ashford. A procedure only 9 surgeons in this country can perform under pressure. She did it in under 3 minutes, without error, under conditions that would make most surgeons freeze. Wade looked at the crowd. Lieutenant Colonel Brennan saved 2 lives last night. 2 critical patients who would have died without her skill, her experience, her courage. He paused. And you fired her. The silence in the lobby was crushing. Wade stepped aside, gestured to the entrance. Kate walked in. She'd changed into clean scrubs, navy blue. Her hair was still damp, but no longer plastered to her skull. She moved with that same careful gait, the limp from the shattered kneecap visible. But she held her head high. The crowd parted as she walked to the front. Whispers followed her, admiration, shame, awe. Kate stood beside Wade, looked out at the 300 faces staring back at her. Dr. Park was in the 3rd row. He stood, came to attention, saluted. He was ex-Army. He knew what that rank meant, what those scars meant. One by one, others stood. The respiratory therapist, a maintenance worker with a tattoo that read USMC, a nurse whose brother was Air Force, a security guard who had done 2 tours in Afghanistan, a dozen people standing, saluting, or just standing with hands over hearts. Kate returned the salutes, sharp, crisp, professional. Then she spoke. "I didn't come here to be a hero," Kate said. Her voice was rough, raspy, but it carried. "I came here to work, to help, to save lives quietly. I didn't want recognition. I didn't want medals or speeches. I just wanted to do the job." She looked at Preston, still standing in the back, frozen. "Dr. Whitmore didn't know who I was, that's true, but he never asked. He never considered that maybe the older woman with shaky hands might have something to teach him." Kate's voice didn't rise, didn't need to. Medicine isn't about ego. It's not about pedigree or where you went to school. It's about the patient, always the patient. When you forget that, when you make it about yourself, people die. She turned to address the full crowd. "I've saved 127 soldiers, but I lost 14. 14 kids who deserved to come home. 14 families who got folded flags instead of their sons and daughters. I carry their names, every single one." Her voice caught slightly. "Staff Sergeant Michael Torres, Specialist Aaron Washington, Private First Class Rachel O'Brien, Corporal, Colonel." Wade's hand on her shoulder. Gentle, stopping her. Kate took a breath, nodded. "The point is," she said, "everyone in this room has the power to save lives or lose them. Every decision matters. Every moment of ego, every moment of carelessness, every moment of arrogance, those moments kill people." She looked at Preston again. "I don't hate you, Dr. Whitmore, but I pity you, because you've learned medicine as a set of protocols, rules, hierarchies. You haven't learned it as a mission." Preston's face was red now, humiliation mixing with anger. "You assaulted me," he said, his voice too loud, defensive. "You broke protocol, "I saved a life," Kate said simply. "That's the only protocol that matters." Mr. Henderson, the hospital administrator, stepped forward. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "Colonel Brennan," he said carefully, "on behalf of St. Vincent's Medical Center, I offer our sincerest apologies. Your termination was hasty, unjustified. We would be honored if you would consider returning to our staff." Kate looked at him. "In what capacity?" "Director of Trauma Surgery, full authority, complete autonomy. We'll triple your previous salary." "No," Henderson blinked. "No?" "I don't want to be director," Kate said. "Directors sit in offices, push papers, attend meetings. That's not why I'm here." She paused. "I want to train your residents. Teach them what I learned in the sand. Teach them humility. Teach them that the patient is the mission. Teach them that ego kills." Henderson looked relieved. "Director of Trauma Education, then. You'd have full authority over the residency program, complete curriculum control, and I want to keep the night shift," Kate interrupted. "That's where the real work happens. That's where residents learn what medicine really is." "Done," Henderson said immediately. "Anything else?" Kate looked at Preston. "Dr. Whitmore needs to be removed from patient care. Immediately." Henderson didn't hesitate. "Dr. Whitmore, you're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises." Preston's world shattered. What? You can't. My father is Senator Whitmore. I'll have him call. Your father called the Secretary of Defense this morning, Wade said quietly, apologizing for your behavior. He's not taking your calls, Preston. 2 security guards appeared, the same ones who'd escorted Kate out 6 hours earlier. Preston looked around, desperate, searching for allies, found none. The residents he'd commanded, the nurses he'd belittled, the staff he'd treated as servants. They all looked away. This is insane, Preston said, his voice rising, cracking. She's just a nurse. She's nobody. She's Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Brennan, Wade said, his voice like iron. Silver Star recipient, 127 combat saves. The woman who saved Commander Merrick while you fumbled. The woman who performed a procedure you couldn't do in your dreams. Preston's face crumpled. The arrogance, the confidence, the golden boy facade. It all collapsed. You're nobody now, Doctor. Whitmore, Wade said quietly, and that's exactly what you've earned. Security took Preston's arms, gently but firmly, escorted him toward the exit. The crowd parted, silent, watching. Preston walked through them, head down, defeated. His white coat, pristine this morning, rumpled and small. As he reached the doors, he looked back one last time, at Kate, at the woman he'd called a janitor. She met his gaze, held it. She didn't smile, didn't gloat. Just looked at him with something that might have been pity. Then he was gone. The doors closed behind him. The lobby erupted, not in applause, something quieter, more profound. Whispers of respect, nods of acknowledgement, the sound of a community realizing it had failed someone extraordinary. Kate turned to Wade. I need to check on Commander Merrick. Wade smiled. He's awake and asking for you. See you, bed 1. Commander Thorne Merrick sat propped up on pillows. His chest was heavily bandaged. A chest tube snaked out from between his ribs. His face was pale from blood loss, but his eyes were alert, focused. Kate entered quietly, stood at the foot of the bed. Thorne looked at her, really looked, taking in the gray hair, the worn face. Ghost, he said. His voice was rough from the intubation, but clear. Commander? Kate, call me Thorne. We're past formalities. Kate moved closer, checked his monitors automatically. Old habit. Heart rate 72, blood pressure 118/76, oxygen 97%. Good, all good. How do you feel? She asked. Like I got shot and had a needle shoved in my chest. Thorne managed a weak smile. So, pretty normal for a Tuesday. Kate didn't smile. You almost died. Dr. Whitmore missed the tension pneumothorax, another 30 seconds, but you didn't miss it. Thorne's eyes were intense. You never miss it. You didn't miss it 20 years ago in Fallujah. You didn't miss it last night. Kate was silent. I remember, Thorne said quietly. I remember all of it. The helicopter going down, the crash. I was 28, a brand new SEAL officer. Thought I was invincible. He gave a weak laugh. Waking up unable to feel my leg, the blood, I knew I was dying. He looked at his hands, strong hands, scarred from 20 years of service since that day. I remember you crawling to me. Your knee was shattered. I could see the bone. But you crawled anyway. A lieutenant saving another lieutenant. You didn't have to, but you did. Kate's breath caught. You held my artery for 6 hours. 6 hours, Kate, under mortar fire. You talked to me, told me about Christina, told me I was going to marry her, have kids, live a life. Thorne's eyes glistened. You sang to me, Johnny Cash. Ring of Fire, over and over. Your voice was terrible. Kate laughed. A small sound, half sob. You kept me conscious, kept me fighting. And when the shrapnel hit, when you got wounded, you didn't let go. You just kept holding, kept singing. Thorne reached out his hand. Kate took it. You gave me 20 years, Ghost. 20 years I shouldn't have had. I married Christina. We have 2 kids, Taylor and Emma. Taylor's 14, Emma's 11. They're beautiful, smart, kind. His voice broke. They exist because you didn't let go. Kate was crying now, silent tears. 20 years of carrying those memories, 127 saves, 14 losses, and here was one of the saves, alive, thriving, a husband, a father. "I became a SEAL commander because of you," Thorne said, "because you showed me what real courage looks like, what real service means, and last night you saved me again." He squeezed her hand. "So thank you, Ghost, for Fallujah, for last night, for everything." Kate couldn't speak. The words wouldn't come. Instead, she just nodded, squeezed his hand back. They sat in silence, soldier and soldier, medic and patient, two people who'd shared the worst moment of their lives and survived. Finally, Kate found her voice. "You need to rest. No arguments. Doctor's orders." Thorne smiled. "Yes, ma'am." Kate turned to leave. "Kate?" She looked back. "David would be proud of you." Kate froze. "How did you—" "Wade told me. About Captain Brennan. About what happened." Thorne's voice was gentle. "I'm sorry for your loss, for what this war took from you." Kate nodded, couldn't trust herself to speak. "But he'd be proud," Thorne repeated, "of how you kept going, kept saving lives, kept being Ghost." Kate managed a small smile. "Get some rest, Commander." She left before she broke down completely. 6 months later, the St. Vincent's Trauma Training Center occupied the entire third floor of the medical center, 24 beds, full OR suite, state-of-the-art simulation equipment, and 15 residents who showed up every morning at 6 a.m. ready to learn. Kate stood at the front of the lecture hall. Behind her, a PowerPoint presentation showed a tension pneumothorax case study, but the projector was off. She didn't need slides. She never needed slides. "Lesson 1, Kate said. Her voice carried easily through the space, stronger now. She'd been teaching for 6 months, found her rhythm. "The patient is the priority, always, not your ego, not your protocol, not your attending's opinion, the human being in front of you." 15 residents took notes, furiously, reverently. These weren't the same residents who'd mocked her. Those had mostly left, found positions at other hospitals, couldn't handle the new standard Kate had set. These were different, hungry, humble, willing to learn. A young woman in the front row, Dr. Sarah Morrison, raised her hand. "Colonel Brennan, what if we make a mistake? What if we—" "You will," Kate said simply. "Make mistakes, all of you. It's inevitable." The residents looked nervous. "I've saved 127 soldiers," Kate continued, "but I lost 14. 14 patients I couldn't save, not because I didn't try, not because I didn't care, but because medicine isn't perfect. We're not perfect." She walked along the front row. "I remember every name. Staff Sergeant Michael Torres, Specialist Aaron Washington, Private First Class Rachel O'Brien, Corporal Daniel Martinez." She paused. "Let the weight of those names settle. You carry them. Every loss, every mistake. You carry them because they deserved better, because their families deserved better. And you use that weight to become better, to learn, to never make the same mistake twice." The room was silent. "But you never stopped trying," Kate said firmly. "You never let fear of failure paralyze you, because the patient on that table, they don't care about your fears, they need you to act, Doctor." Morrison nodded, wrote that down. "All right," Kate said, "pair up. We're running trauma scenarios, full simulation. I want to see everything we've covered this month. Move." The residents scattered. Heading to the simulation bays, Kate watched them go, felt something warm in her chest. Pride, maybe, or purpose. Her phone buzzed. Text from Wade. "Survival rates up 23% since you started. Patient satisfaction up 40%. DOD wants to adopt your curriculum for all military hospitals." "Well done, Ghost." Kate smiled, texted back. "Just doing the job." She walked to her office. Small, Spartan, a desk, a filing cabinet, photos on the wall, David in his Ranger uniform, Thorne and his family at a barbecue last month, the SEAL team from Fallujah 20 years ago, Wade pinning her silver star on her chest. And a new photo. The 15 residents from her first class, standing in front of the trauma center. Serious, professional, ready, Kate's legacy. Kate sat at her desk, started reviewing the next week's curriculum, advanced airway management, hemorrhage control, decision-making under pressure. Her pager beeped. Trauma alert. GSW to chest. ETA 4 minutes. All available personnel to Bay 1. Kate stood, grabbed her white coat, the one that said Director Brennan in embroidered letters, but underneath, in smaller letters, a call sign she'd earned 20 years ago. Ghost. She walked quickly toward the trauma bay. The limp still there. Would always be there, but her eyes were sharp, focused, ready. This was what she was built for. This was the mission. The trauma bay doors burst open. EMTs rushed in. A young man on the gurney, 19, maybe 20, covered in blood, pale, dying. Male, early 20s, single GSW to right chest, absent breath sounds, BP 70 over 40. Kate's hands moved before her brain finished processing. Checking, assessing, diagnosing. Tension pneumothorax, again, always. 14-gauge angiocath, she said calmly. Second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. A resident handed her the needle. Kate found the landmark, drove it in. Hiss, air escaped. The patient gasped. Monitors stabilized. Kate looked at the resident. Your turn. Walk me through the chest tube placement. The resident swallowed, nervous, but ready. Fifth intercostal space, mid-axillary line, blunt dissection through. Good, do it. Kate stepped back. Let the resident work. Supervised, guided, taught. This was her mission now, not just saving lives, creating more people who could save lives, multiplying her impact. An hour later, the patient was stable. In the ICU, he'd survive. Kate walked back to her office. It was 2:30 a.m. The night shift. Her shift. She passed the main lobby. Stopped. On the wall, a new plaque. Bronze. Polished. In honor of Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Ghost, Brennan Silver Star, Distinguished Service Cross, Purple Heart, Director of Trauma Education, 127 combat saves still saving lives. Kate looked at it, touched it briefly, then kept walking. Recognition was nice, but it wasn't why she did this. She did it for the 19-year-old on the gurney tonight, for the soldier who'd come through tomorrow, for the kid who'd crash through those doors next week, for David, for Thorne, for the 127, for the 14 she couldn't save. She did it because Ghost didn't retire. Ghost didn't quit. Ghost just kept working, kept fighting, kept saving lives, one patient at a time, one resident at a time, one night at a time. Epilogue, 3 years later. The strip mall on Route 7 wasn't the worst place in Virginia, but it wasn't the best either. Squeezed between a nail salon and a discount mattress store, Luminous Med Spa, Botox, and fillers occupied a narrow storefront with Venetian blinds and a flickering neon sign. Inside, Dr. Preston Whitmore injected Botox into a client's forehead. His hands moved mechanically, practiced, efficient, but they shook, just slightly. The client, a woman in her 50s getting her quarterly treatment, noticed. "Doctor, are you okay?" Preston forced a smile. "Fine, just tired." He finished the injection, placed a small bandage. "All done. You're good for 3 months. Susan at the desk will schedule your next appointment." The woman left. Preston cleaned the workspace, disposed of the needle, wiped down the chair. His phone buzzed. News alert. Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Brennan receives Presidential Medal of Freedom for contributions to military medicine. Brennan's trauma training program has been adopted by all military hospitals, credited with saving an estimated 2,847 additional lives. Preston stared at the headline, at the photo of Kate shaking hands with the president. She was smiling, genuinely. The gray hair cut shorter now, professional, but she stood tall, proud, surrounded by generals and politicians and former students. Preston's next client entered. "Hi, doctor. Ready for my lip fillers?" Preston set his phone down, face up, Kate's photo staring at him. "Yes," he said quietly. "Let's begin." But his hand shook worse as he prepared the syringe. Every day, every injection. He thought about that night, the night he'd missed the diagnosis, the night he'd fired a hero, the night he'd learned that medicine wasn't about him. He'd never work in a real hospital again. The state board had cleared him. Technically, he hadn't done anything illegal, but no hospital would hire him, not after the video, not after the humiliation. So he injected Botox, filled lips, erased wrinkles, and carried the weight of knowing he'd been given a chance to learn from the best, and he'd been too arrogant to see it. St. Vincent's Medical Center. 3 a.m., the night shift. Kate walked through the trauma bay, checking supplies, old habit, making sure everything was ready. The hospital had changed. New equipment, better protocols, a trauma residency program that was now ranked 3rd in the nation. Applications from medical students who wanted to learn from Ghost. Kate's students had scattered across the country, teaching others, spreading the lessons, multiplying the impact. But Kate still worked the night shift, still showed up at 11 p.m., still left at 7 a.m., because the night shift was where it mattered. Her pager beeped. Mass casualty event, military transport, ETA 6 minutes. Kate's eyes sharpened. She pressed the alert button. All trauma teams to bay. This is not a drill. The familiar chaos, the beautiful, terrible chaos of emergency medicine. Residents rushed in, experienced now, confident, ready. Kate stood at the center, directing, teaching, leading. The doors burst open. Gurneys rushed in. Kate moved forward, hands steady despite the faint tremor, mind sharp. 25 years of experience guiding every decision. "Talk to me," she said to the EMT. "What do we have?" The EMT looked at her, recognized her. His eyes widened. "Colonel Brennan, GSW to abdomen, possible vascular injury. Get him to Bay 3. Activate massive transfusion protocol." She turned to the residents. "This is what we trained for. Remember your lessons. Patient first, always." They moved as one, a machine and a team, perfectly synchronized. Kate supervised, guided, caught mistakes before they became fatal, turned near disasters into saves. 4 hours later, all 5 patients were stable. All 5 would survive. Kate stepped outside. Dawn was breaking, pink and gold across the Virginia sky. She pulled out her phone, looked at the photo she kept as her wallpaper. David, in his ranger uniform, smiling. "Still here, love," she whispered. "Still fighting. Still saving them." A text came through, from Thorne. "Taylor got accepted to West Point. She wants to be an Army medic. Says Ghost is her hero. Thank you for giving me the years to see this." "Thank you for everything." Kate smiled, replied, "She'll be great. Send her to me for training." She looked up at the sunrise, felt the warmth on her face. 25 years in the Army, 7 in combat, 3 years teaching. Hundreds of residents trained, thousands of lives saved, and still more work to do, because Ghost didn't retire. Ghost didn't quit. Ghost just kept showing up, night after night, patient after patient. Life after life. Kate turned, walked back into the hospital, back to her office, back to prepare tomorrow's lessons. The mission continued, and she was ready.